Okay, hello TEC400. This is your professor, Braden Evans. Still here 2 weeks later, and hoping that this communication finds you all in good health and good spirits. What an experience we're going through right now. It's been a bit of a whirlwind, and I know you guys are trying to adapt to the new system. Obviously, in the interest of your education, the college has made plans to deliver the balance of the courses in this online format. And so I'm going to do my best to deliver this content to you in an efficient and effective way. We'll just have to work through it together. But know that I'm here to support you and available to talk. So one point that I'll make at the outset is that there are a lot of emails going through. There's a lot of information, and so my goal is to have fewer contact points with you, like not communicate to you all the time. But when I do talk to you, I want to try to cover all the bases so that you've got one place to go to find the information you're looking for. If I start sending you 20 emails a week, you're going to say, oh, when did Braden mention that? And you're going to go looking for emails through a pile, and I don't think that's going to be helpful for you. So you can always email me if you need to get a hold of me, and I'm happy to have a chat using some digital medium somehow at any point here between now and the end of the term. Okay? So, in the interest of keeping things going along the same lines as we had them before, I'm still going to introduce you guys, okay? So this is going to be less entertaining, less fun than, meeting your classmates in person. But I do want to take a minute and highlight some of the interesting aspects of the people in your class. Okay, so I've got my pile of names here, and the first name on the list, Femine Francis. Femine is in electronic engineering, and he says, in terms of what makes him unique, he thinks he's the only person from South India in this class. And I'll be honest with you guys, with our notorious group of Patels, the 9 or 10 Patels in class, Femine, I think you might be right. I know all those guys and girls are from the northern part of India, you're probably outnumbered in that regard, but it's a good thing, we've got solidarity, we're all in this together, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. But that's cool. If we were live and in person, I would say which part of South India, but that's okay. Most interesting place you visited is Ottawa, Canada, which is pretty cool. Ottawa's cool. The national capital. I like that. But Femine, when this all blows over and the coronavirus risk is basically gone, I would strongly encourage you to go a little further. Go to Montreal, because Ottawa's cool, but Montreal is that much more fun of a city. You'll see it when you get there. Trust me. All right, so thank you, Femine. Next up, Ali Setayeshnia. Ali, I've known for a while because I taught Ali in interpersonal skills for engineers. Ali says this is his last semester here at Seneca. Congratulations. And so Ali has an interesting background, and his accent, he says, makes him unique. He's half Persian, half Turkish, and grew up in Georgia, and where he also learned Georgian and Russian. His accent is a mixed version of 4 different languages, and that is pretty cool, man. So I wonder, Ali, do you speak 4 languages? I see Persian and Turkish and Georgian and Russian. I know you speak English, so that is pretty cool, man. In terms of places you traveled to, a city called Batumi in Georgia. Best place you visited so far. I don't know it, but hey, if you guys are looking to kill some time, check it out, Google it. Must be an interesting place. Thank you, Ali. Okay, next up. See, it says Satani Mayur, but I think it's Mayor Satani. I talked to you, Mayor, and I know you go by Mayor, so you're just trying to mess with me putting your last name before your first name. That's okay. Civil engineering technician. You like sketching, which is cool. And in terms of interesting places you've traveled, you wrote the Taj Mahal. It's the symbol of love in Agra, one of the 7 wonders of the world. So it was built by, I can't read your handwriting, but someone for his wife, which is really, really cool too. Some nice bit of old history, something that we don't really have too much of in Canada. So thanks for sharing that, Mayor. Okay, last up for today, Jomel. Jomel is in civil engineering technology. In terms of your quirks, you say you're an introvert, so you're not very outgoing. I know you're kind of quiet in class, but you seem to get along very well with your group mates and classmates. So I guess you can be a little bit introverted and still be a good sort of social team member as well. And you say you don't recall any place you visited. If we were in class, I would start picking your brain, and I bet you have some interesting places. Anyway, there we go, guys. There's our introductions of a handful of classmates. And beware, you may be next on the list. I want to make sure to get through everybody before the end of the term. Okay, so let's see what we are going to talk about today. So we did our introductions. We're going to talk a little bit about this brave new world that we're in. We'll do a recap on the assignments, where we're at and where we're going. And then today's lecture from a content perspective will be focused on peer reviewing and team writing. Okay, so I think at this point I'll put it in a note as well that I'm going to pre-record these PowerPoints to deliver the material to you. I'm going to try really hard to keep them under an hour. I think it would be silly to drone on and on and have you watch a PowerPoint presentation for more time than that. And then from 9 until 10 during our scheduled class time, the middle hour of our class time, I'm just going to have like an open forum chat, question and answer, maybe go over the assignment a little bit, talk about what's to come, but keep it informal. And I think in this case, less is more. You guys know what you have to do between now and the end of the term, so I'm just going to let you do it and try to stay out of the way as much as I can, but also, be available to help support you guys. Okay, so, holy smokes, this COVID-19 situation. So, the last I checked, I've got a website that I use to sort of update my information. I'm sure you guys all have it too, but last look I had, there were about 360,000 people affected around the world. Which is pretty mind-boggling when you think of the number of countries. Like just about every country in the world is affected, all the continents, and 15,500 people have died, which is unbelievable in terms of a tragedy. To compare this with one of the more recent big outbreaks that affected us here in Toronto, had a massive impact on Toronto. The SARS outbreak from almost a couple of decades ago now, there were 8,100 deaths, 8,100 deaths. 8,100 cases, and 775 deaths. So less than 1,000 deaths, and that had a massive impact on the city of Toronto. In this case, we're talking about almost 30 times that and counting for the coronavirus. So this is going to be a real difficult ordeal for the world to recover from, not only emotionally and socially, but economically too. I mean, we are staring down a big time financial crisis. So, I hope that, this type of difficulty brings out the best in people. Often it does, and we see some real progress made on many different fronts. And in this case, I think, socially and in terms of medical services and medical coordination, we hope to see things sort of better structured going forward. In terms of the services that'll be offered by Seneca, I mean, don't go to campus. You're expected to stay home. So, many services like research and library services you can find access to online. You would probably be doing that online anyway. And I really think, like, to get through this course and probably most of your other courses, you can figure it out using online remote technologies and multimedia. So, if there's anything you need access to and you're not clear on it and you want to bounce it off me, by all means, just reach out to me and let me know. But there's a lot of information out there, and I'm not really going to run down sort of what's available and what isn't. But if you do need some help, let me know and I can help you find some answers. Okay, what's to come? As far as I know, the summer semester is going ahead, but that's information that's a couple days old, so we'll see. We know the situation is changing by the day, and so I don't want to say too much about what to plan for in the future when we know that the situation is very fluid. Okay, so what are we going to do here moving forward? I'm going to pre-record 3 PowerPoint lectures for the next 3 weeks. I'll have them posted the day before class. Hopefully you can get through them. I'll try to keep them short. Even if you were to go through them 8 to 9 a.m., that would work as well. I'll keep the material very, very tight, focused, or as tight as I can. My approach will be that less information is more in this case. Just try to get you the key points and get you to move on with your day and really work on your assignments and prepare for your final exams. So I'll shoot to post those at some point on Monday. I'll try not to do it too late so that you can review it in advance of class. And then I'm going to set up a live chat Q&A from 9 to 10 a.m. on Tuesday. So we'll use that time to address any questions you have in terms of the lecture material, and also to talk a little bit about the assignment that's due. And that'll be kind of the focus there. So I'll make myself available for a live chat. We're going to use the Blackboard Collaborate Ultra tool for that, and I'll give you some instructions in an announcement on the Blackboard site. And we may find that I'll log on there and I'll be on there, but there may only be a few questions. I'm not sure what to expect, but I just want to make myself available during class hours for that period of time, and we'll just kind of see how that goes. Otherwise, you can email me anytime. Let me know if you want to talk. We can call each other. That's pretty easy. So yeah, we can use various platforms to get our ideas across. So you shouldn't feel that you're not able to connect with me. I want to make myself available to you guys. I have a very flexible schedule now. My real constraint is that I'm stuck in my house with 3 kids, so I may be interrupted trying to have some conversations, but otherwise I'm available when I'm not teaching my other classes, so that's helpful as well. Okay, now here's the most important part as far as you're concerned in terms of getting through this class. What is left to do? All right. So first of all, you don't have a final exam. Yay! That's good news. Your group report and group presentation are really the last 2 pieces. Okay. So in your assigned groups, the groups that you did your data analysis with in the working with data assignment, you're going to do a paper and you're going to have an associated presentation. And these were worth 25 and 15%, but we had an in-class assignment that we can't do anymore, so I've allocated that 5%, half to the report and half to the presentation. So now they're worth 27.5 and 17.5%. As far as the presentations go, you don't have to give a presentation. So I want you to prepare one. I want you to prepare something that's interesting and compelling and uses data and images. You've had great practice developing something in PictoChart. and you're free to use PowerPoint or Pictochart. Okay, I'm going to give you guys that flexibility on this one. And I want you to refer to the assignment description under, in the group assignments document under the assignments tab. I've got sort of well articulated criteria in terms of what I want you to include. Okay, I've got bullet points on exactly all of the formatting pieces I want in there, and then the major sections I'm giving you a short explanation, sort of what should go into the intro and the body and the conclusion and so on. Follow the format, okay? Make sure to tidy that up. Make sure to have that piece looked after, and you're going to be well on your way to getting this thing done, okay? And what I want is by Tuesday, April 7th at 5 p.m., so that's week 13, I want each group to decide to have one member from the group send me an email with the names of all group members, your paper, your report, and your presentation, all in one email, okay? I'm receiving email assignments from multiple different classes, and I'm not going to chase down one piece at a time. So consolidate your work, put your presentation together, put your paper together, attach them both to the same email, and send it to me by 5 p.m. on Tuesday, April 7th. All right? So that, I think, takes care of most of our housekeeping business. All right? Most of the sort of what's next and what's to do type items in our list. So I'm going to go through this lecture now about peer reviewing and team writing. And I won't spend too much time going into details, but this is useful for you guys as you prepare this final group assignment. Think back to the contract that we prepared back at the beginning of the semester, how you worked on that first assignment, and what you can do to improve your performance here on the second one, okay? Because here we're going to talk about sort of reviewing other people's work, being a good editor, and then writing as a team. There's some terrific opportunity there and some terrific challenges too. It's not easy, but it's real life. So this is a good experience for you guys to kind of work through. All right. So peer reviewing, getting together to comment on and recommend making improvements for your teammates' work, right? And it's a terrific way to improve your own writing skills. When you're looking critically at someone else's writing, you're sort of getting a better understanding of what sort of passages are clear, which ones are not so clear, what sort of tendencies we have as writers, and it's a huge opportunity for you to improve your own skills because you're picking out some of the errors in other people's work. It's critical that you do it in a way that is productive and positive, right? This is the tricky thing. This is something we'll talk about a little bit here in today's lecture. Reviewing can be a little bit sensitive, so it needs to be done in the right way where we're supportive of each other as team members. And then, second half of this lecture, we'll talk about team writing, getting the plan together, how to draft it, how to revise, and then wrapping it up, right? So being collaborative, not easy, right? For different reasons, each of us struggles with this. Some of us want to do the whole thing ourselves. Some of us don't want to do anything. And trying to pull all that together and have an effective team is a challenge. So let's dive into some of these topics a little bit. All right. So first, we're going to cover peer reviewing. So the strategies. We're talking about evaluating, criticizing, suggesting improvements on another writer's work, and we have to communicate this to them in a way that is positive. It's a sensitive subject, right? It's very personal when we produce something of written form, right? So for example, if someone just drones on, doesn't give any sort of compelling data or compelling sort of facts, how do you tell them it's boring? How do you tell them, man, you got to spice it up, right? Well, you can do that, but you need to do it in a way where you're not just coming right out and saying, hey, this is boring, change it, right? We need to be smart and tactful about how we do it. So when we're talking about reviewing, you get your group together, you have an initial meeting, make sure everybody's aware of sort of what our goals are for the entire paper and then for the different sections. Make sure we're all on the same page in terms of, which angle of the topic we're covering, who the audience is. In this case, your audience is me. I'm not necessarily an expert in all these areas, so show me you can explain these things to me. What's the purpose of doing it? What's the context? So, frame your objectives that way, your goals, right? That helps you in terms of determining how to edit and review a document. Another thing, part of the writer's responsibility in peer reviewing is, you got to make it clear what your approach is, right? So if you're saying, say you're working, one of the groups is working on carbon emissions, and you're trying to say, hey, China's carbon emissions are really bad, but they're in a period of economic growth. And you know what? In the U.S., when they were experiencing periods of economic growth, their carbon emissions were really bad too. So how can we tell China to slow down and stop their carbon emissions when they're just trying to grow their economy? Okay, so if you're trying to express that, make it clear. Don't make sure it's not confusing to your group members, whether you're saying carbon footprints are good or bad. Make sure you're sort of explaining the point you're trying to articulate, so they know which direction you're going. And similarly, before kind of jumping down a writer's throat, a reviewer should sort of clarify, right? What's the angle exactly you're trying to take here? Before we become overly critical of each other's writings. Okay, so questions posed by peer reviewers should be, pretty specific, right? So, does my explanation of the virtual machine make sense to you? Would it make sense to our least technical customers? Is my writing style too technical? Do chapter titles, headings help organize the content? Did you choose some good figures and images? I think sometimes we really underestimate that. The ability to use images and data to make compelling points is such good supportive material. So, specific questions about the writing are sort of key, right? Sure, it's important to review and edit for grammar and spelling and punctuation, right? That's important. You want to make sure it's, clear and easy to understand. But then there are many other considerations when you're reviewing someone else's work. So, is it interesting? Is it adapted to the audience it's intended for, right? Is it persuasive? So, do you have a purpose? Are you trying to say that CO2 emissions are bad? Are you making a compelling case for that? Are you being convincing? How is the information organized? Are you making good use of headings to tell a story, right? To build up to your conclusion. Does it flow? Transitioning between different sections. This is important when you're kind of piecing different sections together too, right? Your title, your intro, your conclusion. Are these in line with the body of your paper? And then how the language is structured, the sentence styles, the clarity, and images and graphs, right? The more, I think I've got a minimum requirement of graphs that you want, but if you go more, higher than that, that's okay too, as long as they're compelling, right? Not to just throw some basic images out there. So you've got to consider more than just the basics of grammar and language mechanics, right? You've got to consider, hey, are we telling an interesting story here? Just like you would if you were writing something on your own. Okay, you don't necessarily want to convince everybody to write in your own personal style. Make sure you're kind of unbiased in your approach to the writing, not changing every word because you would choose, one word over the other, but really focus on, does it make sense and is it clear, right? And when you're making comments, give an explanation. So don't just say, this paper's unclear, this paper's disorganized. Explain what about it is unclear or disorganized, and then pull out specific examples. So like here, you're trying to say this, but it's not obvious, right? The way you've worded it, something like that, right? So you're explaining, you're not just kind of cutting it down, but you're providing solutions and alternatives, right? Yeah, suggest a way that you could correct the problem or issue. That tends to be received so much more positively by the writer, right? Okay, you know, another aspect is maybe like the way the information is organized. If you think that it's a good idea to say flip the order of a couple of paragraphs, explain why, right? You know, more general information tends to go first, and then you build up to your main point. So if that is sort of in reverse on the paper, then you know you can explain that rationale for wanting to change the order of a couple of paragraphs. Okay, for you editors out there that tend to be very hands-on, avoid, you know, rewriting the whole thing, right? You can suggest improvements and corrections, but you want to, you know, push people to fix their sections and kind of spread the work and responsibility around in a way that, you know, everybody's got some stake in it. Everybody has some ownership over this document. Everybody should have a section that, you know, they've got sort of control over and are making a contribution for. And so, you know, it's a developmental experience for everybody. So you become a better writer by being a good editor, but the writer improves their own skills too by taking in your feedback and then applying your comments. So everybody should sort of improve as a result of peer reviewing. And, you know, wherever possible, someone may not be the best writer in the world, but wherever possible, find some positives. So look to, you know, compliment your colleagues about, you know, maybe some resources that they found, maybe some research that they did. Hey, this is great data that you provided. This is a really interesting, you know, point that I hadn't thought about. So, you know, you're kind of balancing out sometimes some information that might be taken more negatively with some positive feedback, and that goes a long way, right? And so, you know, you can scan through the draft first, just looking for the positives, right? Before you dive into the criticisms and critiques, look for what your partners did well, and I think it's worth, you know, sort of stressing that when you're giving some feedback. Okay, so then once you've gone through everything and kind of made your comments, I think it's good to have sort of a wrap-up of your thoughts and impressions, sort of summarize it all into one paragraph to say like, hey, this is well written, but, you know, you missed a major point, or well written, but there's some grammar issues that are recurring throughout, so here's what you need to fix. You know, well written, but, you know, we need to add certain sections, so or change the order of certain sections. So whatever it is that you have as your takeaway, make sure you kind of wrap it all up, summarize it into one main paragraph that the writer can go to as sort of the general takeaways, the general sort of conclusions about your review. Okay, so you can sort of organize your comments into different categories. So in one area you can have sort of grammatical edits and critiques, and then the actual content, the information, then the organization, then how compelling it is, how interesting it is, and so on. This is really taking a deep dive into peer review, but it's such a great skill to have and important for, you know, managers out there that need to review what their subordinates are producing in the workplace, right? There's kind of like a hierarchy in terms of the importance of your feedback too. Like there's some parts that are like, this absolutely has to change because we just can't include it as is. And then some of them are maybe, you know, a little bit less important. So if you can kind of articulate that in your feedback as well, saying, hey, this is the big priority, work on this, we're missing a critical piece, whatever that is, I think that's helpful too, to help direct the writer to sort of the right areas, right? And yeah, always being mindful that you don't just say, "Hey, this is not well done." You say, "Okay, this is a bit of an issue. Here's how we can fix it." Right? Don't just tell them to fix it, because if they had been able to do it differently in the first place, then they would have, right? Okay, so it's also useful to ask the writer specific question, right? So asking them to clarify what they mean in a certain sentence or passage, making sure that you're clear on what they're writing, rather than just kind of assuming what they meant, and just be mindful of your language when giving critiques, right? When giving sort of constructive criticism. We don't want to use words that are overly negative. We can still get our point across without being insulting, right? So that's important. Okay, so now we'll switch gears. We went through the editing process, but fundamental to getting there, we need to talk a little bit about writing as a team writing. What are the mechanics of it all? How does it all work? And what are some strategies we can use to make it more efficient and effective, right? The first thing you should know is, as painful as it is for me to give you these assignments where you got to all work together and put your pieces together, it's super common. I've done it in the private sector, the public sector, in academia. It's just a normal way of doing things, right? We have diverse teams with different backgrounds. We've got sometimes big projects that need input from many people. It's just a part of the deal. So this is part of your professional training, right? To get you to have some experience doing this before you get out into the workforce. So the first thing, something that I tried to do, right, a common sort of approach, is to assemble a team of diverse members, right? If you get all a bunch of people who are thinking the same way, you tend to have much less effective team writing outcomes. And so we used personality profiles. We did true colors, right? Formed teams that way. And really the goal was to have a writing team with sort of well-rounded, diverse set of skills, which should hopefully lead to better sort of results for you guys as groups. So what's important? I mean, you need to kind of find out who your group members are, right? It helps for each of you to carve out a bit of an identity. Here's my background. Here's what I'm good at. It helps. It helps with forming a team with some diverse background, but also helps each group member kind of find a niche, right? So here's an example of a team you could potentially put together, working on a report for cloaking technologies. I don't really even know what that is. I think I've seen cloaking in sci-fi TV shows, but you guys are engineers. Maybe you know more about that than I do. So if you go down the list and look at the team members and their background and their skills and interest, there's Sean S., electrical engineer. He is working at a law firm, so he's getting some office management experience while doing some electrical engineering work at school. Tracy K., senior English major, hoping to help get some employment opportunities from a course like a technical writing course. Sanjeev Gupta, computer science major. He's working in computer graphics at a software development shop. John Chang Yang, soon-to-be electrical engineering major, so transferring, still developing English language skills. So for John, it may be harder to do some of the writing, although there could be a lot of skills that are of great use to the team. So it's good to know that out at the outset. Maybe you can put John to work more efficiently on specific research-oriented tasks, and some other formatting and research tasks that are very time-consuming but less dependent on language skills, right? Alice B., she's an undeclared major. She's non-technical, She thinks she might be in the wrong course and she doesn't list any skills. Well, you know, I don't buy that. I think if you're a college student, a university student, you've got plenty of skills. So there may be something more going on there with Alice that you know, she may not be letting on about some of her skills and experience, right? So here at least we have an idea of sort of what everybody's all about on the team. And see, I like the balance in a team like this one much more than if it was all electrical engineers like Sean. You know, this is a well balanced sort of diverse group, right? Okay, so step one, you got to plan the project. You've put your team together, and so there are some steps that you kind of got to work through here. So first of all, read the assignment description, right? I've got it posted on Blackboard. I tell you exactly what I want you to do, what I want you to address, and I give you some topic options. I mean, you guys have now selected your topic, so you're beyond that stage. And now you need to think about like the tone, the overall tone of your paper, defining the audience. In this case, it's, you know, it's an academic paper, right, for a college course. So, you know, presumably you guys have done a little bit of this already. You know what writing a kind of research report is all about. We've spent quite a bit of time talking about some formatting issues, whether it comes to, you know, putting a title page together, drafting an abstract, having a table of contents, how to format tables and figures and captions, where they go, what they should include, right? All of those sort of technical aspects, you know, I think you guys are familiar with. You should be brainstorming and narrowing the topics. So this is important for you guys because you've got big global issues. You've got, you know, overpopulation. You've got climate change. You've got water resources. These are huge, and there's a million different approaches to them. And there's no right or wrong way to do this, but you do need to narrow the focus, okay? So you need to make sure that you know, you're not trying to do everything. So you're going to pick, let's say you're doing climate change, you're going to pick 2 or 3 or 4 main issues relating to climate change, 2 or 3 or 4 of the big things to consider, and develop those ideas. Research them, present them, and come up with some conclusions about them, okay? You can't cover everything. It's too big of an issue. So narrow the topic down. That's important, right? And then once you've got your main sort of sections, create an outline. Make sure everybody's got, you know, a piece of the outline. Make sure everybody's got specific, defined tasks. Figure out how you're going to get your research done. You guys do online research through the library, so that's pretty straightforward. Go get, you know, make a plan. Hey, everybody should get, you know, 3, 4, 5 different information sources. Let's get our references organized in the right format. You can even discuss how you extract information from these sources, right? Sometimes people will sort of pull information out and then you know, paraphrase and cite that information. That's okay. Just make sure you're putting citations, in-text citations, in the right place. Organize your graphs. Agree on your style, your format. Develop a schedule. Divide responsibilities. So all of these aspects, right? These are all angles to sort of get that plan made up so that everybody knows what they have to do and what's expected of them. Having this type of clarity really sort of helps all members kind of work towards meeting their objectives, right? And so, you know, it's good to have kind of a working document that, you know, you're kind of capturing all of the sort of deliverables and schedule and outline information, agreements, and so on. The sort of rules of engagement for the team should be captured somewhere. Now, you guys going back to the first week of class, you guys did a contract, right? You guys, that was like one of our first exercises we did. And I think, you know, when I looked those over, I mean, I felt like people all had some real good ideas, right? We're going to communicate. We're going to set up our WhatsApp chats. We're going to do things this way. So go back to that, right? Make sure you go back to that and say, hey, okay, we made this engagement that we're going to get our part done in advance and pilot and work positively together. So refer back to that, make sure everybody's on board. Okay, so you do all this planning, and then you go off and everybody's working on their own section, right? And so that's important because everybody should have some ownership. Like, I'm gonna be, the sort of climate change science guy. I'm going to give a good explanation of how climate change works and do a lot of the background information and so on. Someone else might be handling sort of potential solutions and alternative energy sources, something like that, right? So take some ownership. You become the expert in that area, and you really learn a lot, right, doing a project that way. And so something to keep in mind, I think we talked about teamwork and brainstorming and throwing ideas together. One thing that we should always leave room for is that, for some of us that are a little more introverted, a little more likely to kind of disengage in a social situation, those people should have the opportunity to do some brainstorming on their own and bring ideas to the team, okay? Because what happens is sometimes when we do these group brainstorming sessions, some group members have some amazing ideas and they don't voice them, right? They just don't feel as comfortable sort of throwing out ideas over everyone else's voice. They kind of shrink back into the background. But if they have the opportunity to think on it, draft something up, put it on paper, and share it with their colleagues, there could be some real top-notch information there. So group members should be given the opportunity to kind of develop some ideas and do some brainstorming on their own, and then bring that to the team as well. Okay, and then it's really helpful to have it written down on paper somewhere. Writer 1 is doing this, writer 2 is doing that. Like, have the plan articulated. It doesn't take that much time. It's a little bit of extra time and effort up front. I think, you guys are a couple weeks out from the deadline for this one, so I imagine you're still in the early stages. That's fair enough. Take a minute to not only assign everybody their chunk, but put it on paper somewhere, put it in a Word doc, send it out to everybody. Hey, look, Jim's name is associated with graphics. Sterling is doing these styling and editing, and so on, right? Give everyone a piece. All right, so another aspect is kind of managing that workload, right? So the schedule of dates is key. And it's kind of, frustrating as a prof here at Seneca. I repeatedly see, groups working hard to get their stuff done, and then one member potentially, really dragging their feet and not handing their section in until the very last minute. And then sometimes usually it's not great quality. If you're handing in your section at the last minute, it's not going to be great quality because it means you prepared it at the last minute. And so that puts a lot of pressure on the group mates to pick up the slack, rework your section, fix it up, and incorporate it. So having a schedule, getting things in early really helps with sort of completing the project smoothly, right? So try to stick to those dates and put them down on paper somewhere that, people can be called out if they're not meeting the deadlines that you guys set. Okay, there should be several meetings. I mean, in a perfect world, I had you guys talking in class for these next few weeks, right? I had you getting together, taking some time during our class time to discuss the project and kind of work on your outlines and stuff. Unfortunately, we're not getting together in person, but that doesn't mean you can't have, a group phone chat, some type of, find some multimedia platform where you can have a group discussion and, meet every Tuesday, right? So this Tuesday, next Tuesday, make sure you've got deliverables for everybody. If you have a draft by next Tuesday and you got a full week to kind of rework it and address outstanding issues, that's fantastic. And in groups of 4, I think that's a reasonable objective, So, work on that schedule. Keep keep it detailed, and stick to it, right? Give yourself time to look things over a couple of times if possible, right? Okay, anticipating problems. So I've kind of highlighted this, a couple times now, and I know that it's an issue with some groups. And I appreciate the group members that pick up the slack, but if you're someone who's not sort of honoring the contract and agreement, you should really sort of think about that and push yourself, get out of your comfort zone and produce something, good quality, get it out early, get it to your teammates. Your contract outlines how to deal with conflict. It's difficult when you're up against a deadline, right? So keeping track of what everybody's doing with regular contact is a helpful way of doing that. And if someone's picked up the slack and done a lot of editing and done a lot of compiling and done a lot of extra work, hopefully, you guys are being good teammates and recognizing that person. Buy them a coffee, give them a Starbucks gift card, show them a little love, because I think that there are certain individuals that can really carry a team, and they deserve to be recognized, right? Okay, so going back to, I think it was Alice, when we were talking about the team member skills, she said, I got no skills, I don't know, I'm an undeclared major, I don't know. Seems like she didn't have much to contribute to the project. But usually when someone says that, it's either, they have a little bit of social anxiety, they're kind of nervous, they don't want to be seen as self-promoters or bragging in front of the group, or maybe they're just, not engaged, right? And so one aspect, one approach would be to really try to engage someone like that, give them a piece, make them accountable, make sure that they take ownership over some part of the project. And then if it really feels like they, are lacking in some technical skills that would be kind of required for handling some pieces of the project, there are loads of other areas that they could work on where you don't need to be a technician, a technical person. So formatting, editing, contracts, a lot of the contract and the figures and a lot of ancillary sort of supportive stuff that takes a lot of time and effort, that could easily be assigned to someone who maybe, say, doesn't have technical skills or maybe lacking in certain language skills. The key is, though, not to have someone just say, I'm just going to slap together the different bits and call yourself the editor and not do the job, right? So it's important to hold people accountable and give very specific sort of tasks, right? Okay, disappearing team members. Sometimes they vanish. Honestly, if you're not responding to your group text and you're not producing any work, I hope your teammates reach out to me, and you'll be kicked out of the group and you're going to have to do the project on your own. And we got 2 weeks left to go. So if you want to avoid that, do your part, right? That's the message here. And I encourage you guys to communicate to me if there's a team member that isn't doing anything. And then when we have some sort of deep disagreements, hopefully you've got it written in your contract how to resolve it. Maybe you've got an idea to have a vote. There's bound to be some disagreements in group work. The key is to kind of make a decision and move on. It's not going to make or break the paper. If you get voted down, you get voted down. That happens in life, right? Move on. You might win the next argument. It's a lot better to kind of be humble that way, take the high road and move on, than trying to always push your idea forward and win every battle, right? Okay, something to be mindful of is when you have very inconsistent writing styles and format. This is typical when we have group assignments like this one. People write in different ways and have different sort of calibers of grasp on the English language and everything else. I think if you have some rules about how to present the information, where to put background information, where to put the main points, the order of things, and then real specific things like when to use bolds or italics. You can give that feedback to everyone, and you can find some consistency that way, some technical consistency in the approach to writing. Okay, so wrapping things up, try to put a schedule in for reviews. Say, hey, here's everybody's piece. Let's edit. Let's get it back, and let's put it all into one sort of complete draft. It's tricky, but having a tight schedule for that is really helpful in sort of finding that home stretch, that drive to the finish, right? Be aware of, a paper looking like it's just a whole bunch of different pieces that got slapped together. You got to try to sort of create some cohesion between the sections. So not only making sure everybody's using a similar approach in terms of formatting and structure, but have some transitional sentences or a small transitional paragraph between one section and another if it looks too much like you're cutting one off and starting the next one, right?